Okay, May, June 2022, paper 1, variant 2. Question 1. A lump of modeling clay is moved from a small measuring cylinder to a large measuring cylinder. The reading on the small measuring cylinder goes down by 20 centimeters. How much does the reading on the large cylinder go up? It has to go up by the same amount because it has the same volume. So basically, the volume of the modeling clay was 20 centimeters cubed. When you add it to the large measuring cylinder, the volume will increase by 20 centimeters cubed as well. What is used to determine the distance traveled by an object in motion, the area under the graph, in a speed time graph? In a speed time graph, it would be B. A train traveling 40 meters per second takes 2 seconds to pass a man. What's the length of the train? Distance equals speed times time. So it would be 80 meters. An object is moved from point X to point Y. The acceleration of free fall at X is different from Y. Which statement about the object at Y is correct? Both of them would have the same mass. The mass would not differ. Both its mass and weight are different. No, both its mass and weight are the same. Nope. Its mass is the same, yes, at X, but it's different at but its weight is different. Yes, the mass is the same, but the weight is definitely different. Okay. Question 5. Some more liquid is added. Initially, the volume was 30 centimeters cubed. Some more liquid was added until the volume becomes 50 centimeters cubed. The reading on the balance increases by 30 grams, meaning that, for example, the initial reading was 70, it became 100 grams. So the difference was 30 grams. The difference in the mass. What's the density? Density equals mass over volume. So we will find the difference in the mass, which was 30 grams, over the difference in the volume, which was 30 to 50, which is basically 20, because 50 minus 30. So density equals mass over volume. 30 divided by 20 is 1.5 grams per centimeters cubed. Okay, I guess this was quite easy. Question 6. A spaceship approaches and passes a planet. What can the force of gravity between the spaceship and planet achieve? It can change the speed, the direction. It can change the direction, or slow it down, but not speed it up. Yes, it can speed it up or slow it down. It can slow down the spaceship, speed it up, but not change its direction. No, it can change the direction, slow it down, or speed it up. Okay. Question 7. A beam is pivoted at one end. The beam weighs 6 newtons and acts at a distance of 40 centimeters. A force of 4 newtons is applied, and now the beam is balanced. Force of 4 newtons is applied, and the beam is balanced. To be very honest, the force of 4 newtons, the 4 Newton force, would definitely be applied upwards, right? The force would definitely be applied upwards. So we can cancel out A and B quite easily. Okay. This is 4 newtons. Do you think logically, the 4 newtons should have a distance which is larger than the 6 newtons, or a distance that is shorter? Okay. When talking about moments, whenever you increase the distance, you can decrease the force and vice versa. Okay. If you decrease the force, then you can increase the distance very simply. Okay. If it was a force larger than 6 newtons, for example, if the force was 8 newtons, then 8 newtons could have been applied, for example, somewhere at this position. Okay. Why? Because the force is larger than 6 newtons. But because the force is smaller, okay, the force is now weaker. 4 newtons is much less than 6 newtons. So the distance needs to increase basically vertically upwards, to the left or to the right. No, to the right. You can calculate it if you want. You can calculate it if you want. How can you calculate it? Moment equals force times distance, the clockwise moment and the anti-clockwise moment. So force times perpendicular distance equals force times perpendicular distance. 6 times 40 should be equal to 4 times the distance. Okay, this is 240, 4 equals 4 times distance, divide by 4. So the distance would be 60 centimeters. The distance would be 60 centimeters. Basically, 60 centimeters would be somewhere at this point, which is 20 centimeters to the right from point X. Okay, what are the conditions for an object to be in equilibrium? No resultant force and no resultant moment. Tennis ball is dropped from position 1. It falls vertically onto a hard surface at position 2. What happens to the energy changes? Initially, it had gravitational potential energy. As it falls down, it has kinetic energy. And then as the shape changes, what happens? Elastic or strain energy. Force does work, moving an object, which change always increases the work done equals force times distance. Moved. Distance moved. You cannot decrease the distance. Okay, you can either keep it the same or increase it. So the only right answer would be A. The table shows the weights and the base areas of 4 metal blocks. Which block exerts the greatest pressure? Pressure equals force over area. Okay, force over area, we'll just calculate each force over each area. 3,000 divided by 0.02, 10,000 divided by 0.50, 16 divided by 2, and 20,000 divided by 1.5. The only right answer would be B. This would give the greatest pressure. Diagram shows a deep reservoir formed by a dam. On what does the pressure at X depend? The pressure at X depends on two things. The density of the water, basically it's the same water, so it wouldn't differ, it wouldn't matter that much, and the depth of the water at X. A state of matter consists of molecules that move freely in random directions at high speeds. The average speed of the molecules is decreasing. What's the state of matter and what's happening when they are moving freely? This is a gas. As the average speed decreases, this means that it is cooling. The gas is cooling. Small pollen. Okay, small pollen particles are suspended in water. When viewed with a microscope, the pollen particles can be seen to be moving around irregularly. Brownian motion. What causes this movement? The pollen particles are being bombarded by the heavier particles of water? No, by the lighter particles of water. Liquid in glass thermometer is cancelled. 16 engineer investigates the increasing temperature of the oil. Okay, which row is correct? The change in internal energy when it increases, yes. As it increases, what happens to the kinetic energy of the particles? It also increases. Yes, this is true. Okay. Question 17. What's the name of this effect? The water as it condenses, literally condensation. It condenses around the cup. Diagram shows solar water panels. Which row describes how energy is transferred from the sun through the metal of the pipes? From the sun, radiation. Through the metal pipes, conduction. Metal pipes, metal, conduction. From the sun, definitely by radiation through the outer space, through the vacuum. 4 beakers containing equal volumes of water. Which beaker will heat up the quickest? The quickest would be dull black, best absorber of infrared radiation. Diagram shows a wave. Which row is correct? The amplitude is 1 and the wavelength is 8. Amplitude is 1 and the wavelength is 8. Yes. A girl is sitting on a rock in the sea, looking at passing waves. She notices that 5 complete waves pass in 20 seconds. What's the frequency? How can I calculate the frequency? Frequency equals the number of waves per unit time. So basically, we can divide the number of waves divided by the time, 5 divided by 20, which is 0.25 hertz. A student uses one eye to look at images in a plane mirror. Which objects can be seen at the eye? Okay, the eye is here. Which objects can be seen we can see S quite easily. Yes, you can see S quite easily. If we draw an accurate angle of incidence and an accurate angle of reflection, then he can see R and S quite easily. He can also see T. Why? Because we can increase the angle of incidence this way. Okay, he can see T and he can see Q. We can increase the angle of incidence this way, and he can see T and Q. But if he increases the angle of incidence all the way to this point, for example, the angle of reflection will never reach P, and if you increase the angle of incidence all the way to this point, it will also never reach U. So the maximum distance, or the only objects that he can see, are Q, R, S, and T. He cannot see P or U. Why? Because the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection will not reach these objects. An object is placed in front of a converging lens. Which labeled position should the object be placed to produce a real image that is smaller? Smaller. How can I produce a small image? By increasing the distance. By increasing the distance, whenever the object is further away from the lens, the image will be smaller. A. Okay? Whenever the object is further away from the lens, the image will be smaller. What about B? B would be larger. Okay. C and D, you're not required actually to know C. You're not actually required to know when the object is on the focal point or the principal focus, but I can just say quite quickly that no image will appear. Okay. No image will appear. Okay. You are not required to know what will happen if the object is exactly on the focal point or on the principal focus. At D, what will happen? A virtual image will appear. A virtual image, and this image will be larger as well. Again, the question is very simple. If you want a smaller, okay, if you want a smaller image, then just all you need to do is increase the distance, okay, between the object and the lens. Microwaves, green light, and infrared are all three types of electromagnetic radiation. What is the order when listed by wavelength from the shortest wavelength to the longest wavelength? Looks great. Rami looks great. You have microwaves, light, and infrared. Microwaves, light, and infrared. The shortest wavelength would be the light, whatever type of light it is, then infrared, then microwaves. Light, infrared, and then microwaves. A. Which statement correctly compares radio waves to X-rays? Again, they both have the same speed. Yes, we do know that they have the same speed. Radio waves have a longer wavelength. Yes, Rami looks great. Radio waves have a longer wavelength. Three diagrams show two magnets. Which diagrams, okay, do the magnets attract? Attract would be only two. Two only. I have a diagram which row shows the nature of each of these objects, P, Q, and R. Let's check out P. There's a magnetic field, so this is a magnet. It is a permanent magnet. This has to be the North Pole, and this has to be the South Pole. Again, this has to be the North Pole, and this has to be the South Pole. Q is a non-magnetic material. Why? Because it was not magnetized. There are no magnetic poles on Q. It wasn't attracted to either P or R. Okay, so it's a non-magnetic material. It will be a copper rod. It cannot be an iron rod. Why? Because if it was an iron rod, it would have been a magnet by now. P and R are permanent magnets and north, and they have the poles north and south and north. So the answer would be B. Iron fillings are picked up by an electromagnet. Okay, the current in an electromagnet is switched off and the fillings fall on a plastic bench. The plastic comb is rubbed with a woolen cloth. Okay, so basically the first two sentences are irrelevant. Okay, some of the fillings jump and stick to the comb. Okay, a plastic comb is rubbed with a woolen cloth. Okay, first two sentences are irrelevant. Why do the fillings jump to the plastic cone because it has become electrically charged. It has become electrically charged. Yes, it's either positively charged or negatively charged. Four circuits are set up. Which circuit does the meter measure the potential difference? Potential difference, voltmeter, it has to be in uh, parallel. Resistor, what is the resistance of the resistor? Has a potential difference of 12, a current of 0.6. R equals V over I, 12 over 0.6. 12 over 0.6. This would be 20. Okay, 20 ohms. Which circuit is correctly labeled? This is not a relay, this is not a thermistor, and this is not a heater. This is a light-independent resistor, an emitter, a voltmeter, a battery. These are all correct. Okay. Question 32. IX, IY. IX is the current in resistor X, IY is the current in resistor Y. Which statement describes the current from the power supply? From the power supply current. Okay, IP, for example. IP, the power supply has to be greater than both of them. It actually has to be equal to both of them added up. Greater than IX and greater than IY. Yes, both of them. Diagram shows a battery connected to a potential divider. The slider moves from X to Y. Moves from X to Y. Which row shows the effect on the brightness of each lamp? P will be unaffected. Why? Because it has the same voltage either way. Whatever you do to the potential divider, P will have the same voltage and the same brightness. Why? Because it's in parallel. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's unaffected. Brightness of Q will depend on the potential divider. How will it depend on the potential divider? As the slider moves from X to Y, what happens to the resistance? The resistance keeps on increasing. So R increases, the resistance increases. When the resistance increases, the voltage increases. And when the voltage increases, what happens to the brightness? Okay, what happens to the brightness of Q? It also increases. So the brightness of P will be unchanged and the brightness of Q will be brighter. C. Okay. Hmm. Why is a fuse used in an electrical circuit? Why is it used in an electrical circuit? To save energy? No. To provide a path for the earth? Nope. To prevent the current from becoming too large? This is uh correct. Electrical power is transmitted. Which part of the national grid is the voltage the highest? The highest voltage would be in B. After the step-up transformer, the voltage has increased. Which transformer can change 240 to 15? Okay, it would be a step-down transformer, and obviously all of these transformers are step-down transformers. We can use the equation, okay, VP over VS equals NP over NS. VP over VS is 240 over 15. You can calculate, okay? You can calculate on a calculator. 240 divided by 15 is what? 240 divided by 15 is 16, okay? You need to find which of these ratios are equal to 16. For example, 800 over 40, 1000 divided by 25. And you can just calculate them all, okay? It would be quite easy. The right answer would be D because 1200 divided by 75 divided by 75 would be 16 as well. Question 37. The coils in two electrical motors are identical in size, but motor 1 is observed to spin more quickly. Spin more quickly. Three suggestions are made. The current in coil 1 is greater. Okay, could be. The number of turns in coil 1 is greater. Okay, two coils are identical in size. Okay. Okay, they could have more number of turns. The magnets are stronger, either or all of them. It could be one, two, or three. Yes. 38. Which statements describe two atoms of different isotopes? We know different isotopes are two atoms with different nucleon number, but the same proton number. Nucleon number, but different, but same proton number. Question 39. A radioactive source has a half-life of 0.5 hours. Okay, it now shows a reading of 6,000 counts per minute or per second. Background radiation can be ignored. What is the reading after 1.5 hours? Again, what do you do? Total time divided by the half-life. P3 half-lives. What do I mean by three half-lives? I will divide by 2 how many times? 3 times. I divide by 2 3 times. What will I divide by 2 3 times? 6,000 divided by 2 is 3,000. Divided by 2 again is 1,500. Divided by 2 is 750 counts per second. Some nuclei are unstable. They emit radiation and change into nuclei of different elements. What is this process called? It's called radioactive decay.